Hello everyone, it is time for this week's live stream. The sponsor of this channel is Fritz Aquatics, and I use their salt for my reef tank specifically. They sell all kinds of salt mixes and additives, solutions, and medications for freshwater and even for ponds. So if you have a pond, maybe they have what you need. You can seed a newly cycled tank with Fritzzyme TurboStart 900, for example. They really have it all. If you need something to dip your corals, if you want to clean your glass, they got it. And they even have test kits, so you are set. Also, I want to remind you that I am the executive editor of Coral Magazine, and this is the current issue that's available. And if you don't have a copy, you can order directly from my website from the shop. And the magazine is $10. It comes out 6 times a year, but if you get a subscription, it'll be less than $39, and it gets mailed straight to your mailbox. I highly recommend you read every issue, because every single word and typo or lack thereof is because I am directly involved with this magazine. I offer consultation services, so if you need some help with your aquarium, I can do a one-on-one video consultation with you to figure out what's going on and to make any necessary corrections. I do charge $125 for my time, but if we go longer than an hour, I don't charge extra. You can email me at sales@milasreef.com to schedule a session. So that's it for all the little promos. Here I am. Wow, that is really zoomed in. Can I zoom out? Hang on a second. I'm sorry. You'd think I'd be prepared. I thought I was prepared. Where is my camera control? Give me a second here to let that load up. Oh, it's hiding behind your comments. I see people saying hello, hello. All right, let's do this. There we go. That looks like my room. That's a little bit better. That was a little too close. Wow. Pop Reef, you were nope. Trevor was number 1. Hey, Christine. So, Andrea. Let's see. So I see Michael here, Rick, Thomas, Andrew, Aqua Balls is here. Sounds like a guy that has snakes in his reef tank. Spanky's here. Amar is here. Thanks for putting the link there. I did put some links in this video's description so it can get you to places. We're going to have a specific topic today about raising brine shrimp. I thought that was a really good topic. We've never discussed it on this channel. So I am planning to make a little video showing how to do it, but today we're going to talk about the process and the things that I purchased. I think that's the best approach in this scenario. But first, there's news. What happened this week with my reef tank? First of all, let's put my reef tank on the screen so you guys can see it while I'm chatting. There we go. So there's my reef. And my trident that I bought 2 months ago has decided to go haywire last weekend. And so Neptune Systems, I opened a ticket, tried to get some help, and they turned around and they said, send it back. But my repaired one that I broke before my trip to Interzoo, that arrived. So I'm going to install that on my tank today, and that'll take care of that one new thing. Also, so what else? My Versa pump decided to slow down like it always does, and I turned it up to high speed, and it sounds like my pump is on steroids right now to keep the alkalinity where it belongs in my reef tank consistently. Other than that, there hasn't been any major changes with the tank. It's doing fine. I'm mixing up a new batch of salt water. As you know, I did 555 gallons of water changes about a month ago, and I haven't done one since. So I'm making a new batch of water because I'd like to do one more to get those nitrates lower than 80. And I think one more big water change will bring it down probably to the 30s, possibly a little less. That would be nice. I started using Brightwell's Nitrate R, hoping it would bring those numbers down gradually. And I've been watching the Trident NP, my other Trident. I've been watching the numbers daily, and they're not coming down. So I'm like, all right, fine, so be it. Do a water change. So I'm doing that for now. Then something big arrived. It was just, I got a message on Instagram saying, hey, Mark, we want to send you this. So yes, it did not cost me any money. And what it is this. It's heavy. Hold this up. Oh, this is the Indie Aquatics Automatic Frozen Fish Food Feeder. So this guy here will hold your frozen food in a container, and then through water, it'll be pumped into your aquarium to feed the tank automatically with this little tiny chiller. So they have been in a Kickstarter process apparently for about 5 years. And now this week, it's for sale. If you want to go to their website, you want to go to their social media and learn more, you can. And you can order your own. My box came with all the accessories and goodies and how to clean it and everything else. And I need to learn everything. But I just wanted to show it to you guys because that was a nice gift. And I'm going to put it on the 400 gallon. So that'll be super sweet, especially when I have to travel. Maybe my tank sitter won't have to come over here so often now. Don't tell him. But yeah, that's new and it's exciting. And I've only wanted something like this for 15 years. And so it finally is a real thing. And obviously I will be checking it out and see how it goes. I'm not expecting to have any kind of, I'm not doing it like a product review because it was gifted to me. So I'm just going to enjoy it. But yeah, I'll be sure to post some pictures and stuff on Instagram and on Facebook. And occasionally on here on YouTube as well. And so you guys can see what it is. All right, I've got like the most annoying piece of web page just moving like crazy on my screen in the background. It's just like blowing my eyes out. I can't stand it. All right, that's gone. That's gone. And this is gone. And now we're back to a normal screen. I feel so much better. Okay, brine shrimp. Now, when it comes... Did I leave? Oh, no, I had more news. More news. In, what, 2 weeks? Let me get the calendar out because I think it's 2 weeks. Today is the 20th. Oh, by the way, did you guys put in the chat? Did you guys buy anything for Prime Day? And if you did for your aquarium, I want to know what it is. Okay, today's the 20th. So, in 2 weeks, Aquashella Chicago is happening. It's going to be at the Schaumburg Convention Center. It's August 3rd and 4th. I'm going to be there. I am speaking at 3 p.m. on Saturday. So if you want to come on Saturday to hear my presentation, I'm going to be talking about my favorite tools, the things I use for my reef tank. It's sort of going to be a demo / presentation. So I'm bringing the goodies with me of what I use in my tank to make my life easier. And I figured, you might find that interesting. You might want to copy some of the things I do. So that's that presentation. And then August 24th and 25th, which is basically a month from now. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4... 5 weeks from now, I will be at Restock Chattanooga, which is in Tennessee. And I'm actually doing the same presentation. So if you missed the one at Aquashella, you can hear it at Restock. And so that one will be at the Chattanooga Convention Center. And I couldn't make the schedule come up on the website, but I think they've had me scheduled to speak on Sunday that time. But as we get closer, I'll let you guys know. So obviously in 2 weeks, I will not be doing a live stream, but we will have one next weekend. All right, that was the announcement. So now let's get into our topic. So I've got a box of goodies next to me, and I'll just put it here where I can reach it. Move this out of the way. So the first thing you need when you're trying to grow brine shrimp is to buy some brine shrimp eggs. These are from San Francisco Bay. Yeah, San Francisco Bay brand. I went to their vendor's booth and I bought all this stuff. These are already expired, according to the little label in the back. I bought all this stuff to do it. But the thing is, these things, they don't really expire because they're not wet. And they're, what do you call this, dehydrated or shrink wrapped to the point where there's no moisture, there's no air, there's nothing. So they're fine. And in the past, I had bought brine shrimp eggs from Brine Shrimp Direct or Brine... Yeah, that sounds right. BrineShrimpDirect.com. And they came in a coffee can. And I was like, that's insane. I mean, I had to cut the can open, right? Like you're opening a can of beans. And I was thinking, how on earth are these going to come to life in a sealed container? Just literally sealed. Well, I mean, same principle, right? So I bought the brine shrimp eggs. And I bought a bunch of them because if I'm going to start doing this, I'm going to do it regularly. I also bought my favorite type of hatchery kit, which are these guys right here. So this right here is a base that you would set on your counter or on your shelf, however you're going to do it, and you screw in a 2-liter bottle, upside down. Screw it in with the threads that the cap goes on. You just cut off. So you got your 2-liter bottle, which I don't have. I have to go buy myself a Coke. I just took out all the trash on Friday, got rid of the bottles like an idiot. So I'll go buy some more Coke. I'll drink it. And then you've got your bottle. I will cut off the bottom, flip it over, rinse it out well, screw it into that base, and I've got a hatchery. It's that easy. And when the bottle gets disgusting, if you can't clean it well enough, just get a new soda and do it again. So I got 2 of these hatcheries. because what you want to do when you're trying to grow brine shrimp, you want to grow one each day. So it takes 48 hours for them to hatch. So if you start this one on Monday, and then you start this one on Tuesday, this one's ready on Wednesday, this is on Thursday, this is on Friday, this is on Saturday, and it's forever, and it's super easy to do this. Now, these packages come with a brine shrimp hatch mix already inside. I'll just open it up and show you. And I don't remember what I paid for this stuff because I paid for it at a show, and I just said add to cart. So I just bought, I don't know, spent 80 bucks or whatever for everything I needed. So in here, this is brine shrimp eggs and the salt. Don't even have to figure out the salt. It's already figured out for you. It's like safety stop. You don't have to think about it. How nice is that? They also included in here, so there is 1, 2, 3 packets of this stuff. There apparently, so I finally tore this open for the first time. There is an instruction how to hatch, which is nice and convenient, right? And there is a included check valve for your air supply so that it won't back siphon and flood the pump and ruin the pump. It comes with some tubing. I mean, come on, everything is in the kit. And there's a pinch valve to put on your tubing to control how much air is bubbling through it. And then, I don't know what this is for. It's a sticker. Oh, how cool is this? It's a little thermometer wheel. When I put my hand on there and it was warming up to my fingers, it said 75 degrees. So, obviously I got to hold it longer. But anyway, I could glue this on the bottom and it would show me. So, that's all included in one kit, and I bought 2, so I have twice of everything. I also went ahead and bought an air pump from them. I just said, give me the air pump too. I got everything from them. And then I said, I need a brine shrimp net. And so this one here was, it was probably $4 because there's a 4 on there. So brine shrimp nets are very, very fine. I don't know if it even says what micron they are or whatever. Probably not. They're just called brine shrimp nets. It doesn't say. Oh, net size. Well, no, that's the size. It's a 3-inch net. But what you need is this really soft, fine fabric to catch the hatched brine shrimp in this. And I bought 2 of these, but I only found 1, but I know somewhere I've got a bag of all these. So this is a T-fitting. So you'll have your air pump with your check valve. Check valve. See, it only works one way. So you got the air blowing through from the air pump, and it goes to this T. This goes down to the first hatchery. You put a little short piece of tubing and a second T. That goes to the next hatchery, and that's it. Oh. No, actually, I think I can just do it with this one. Duh. Because I'm trying to think of organized tubing. But yeah, you got air going in here, and one goes to one hatchery, one goes to the other. Done. That's easy. I also, even though you saw the pinch valve, I had bought some of these little tiny inline air valves to control how much air goes through. This is actually used for drip irrigation as well. And so you can control the airflow with this little tiny knob. And there's 2 of these, so I've got that. So I'm basically ready. All I need to do is buy some Coca-Cola. And I had my own tubing that I was planning to use. I just rinsed it out. It's the one I use when I acclimate fish with safety stop. And here is another air pump, the exact same one you saw, because I can't have just one of anything. Now, these air pumps do have a little filter pad in the bottom. This is a little bit of felt mesh. Peel that out from time to time, clean it, or replace it with a new piece, because you do want to filter the air going into whatever it is you're bubbling. In this case, I'm doing brine shrimp. If you're doing it with a fish and safety stop, if you were doing phytoplankton, you always want to filter your air just to keep the contaminants from getting in there. I also, while I was in their booth, got myself a sticker for my sticker board, so that was exciting. I was like, yes! What else do I have in here? More of these packets. I have so many of these packets. Okay, so I told you the salt's in there, but I'm going to be a little bit more clear with you. Also, if you are getting stuff from Brine Shrimp Direct, I'm sorry, from San Francisco Bay. This is not sponsored, clearly. I just bought this stuff. San Francisco Bay included this nice brochure that explains exactly how to do everything. It goes through the whole routine. It shows you step 1, step 2, how to clean, how to rinse. It talks about using soapy water to scrub the container clean after use, and then to use a bleach solution to clean it, and then to rinse it really well. It talks about how to use the cone. There's an example of that cone being installed right there. And it talks about not having the urge to hatch too many, because if you put too much life in the container, it'll smother itself. And you can use a lesser amount than what I'm about to recommend. I'm just telling you what I do. And they even show, which I thought, oh, cool, because I have a microscope. This right here is the brine shrimp eggs at 40 times magnification. So I am planning to put some of these eggs under my microscope just for fun and just see what they look like. And then I might take some that are wet and put them under a microscope and see what they look like. And just kind of, they even have a picture of a nauplii exiting its egg casing, hatching. And now, why brine shrimp? Because a lot of times you hear people say brine shrimp, it's like potato chips for your fish. It's not nutritious. So just want to make sure I didn't forget anything else in the box. Okay. Let me move a couple things off the table here because I can't work in a messy space. Here's a better look at that base. So it's four-sided. It's got a little garden hose gasket right there. Let's see if I can get you some light on there. And you would just press this down inside where it belongs so that the bottle will fit. There we go. That's all the way in. And you can see here in the center, there's a little bit of light. That is where the air stone is going to come through. So when you hook up your airline tubing, you just press it on the nipple on the bottom. Hopefully you never break that nipple. By the way, don't break that nipple. Hey, Jack. You want to just leave it alone, never touch it again. Because every time you push something on plastic, eventually it's going to wear out. Then there's a notch here for your airline tubing to go like this. And then sit on your table where you're going to bubble your stuff. And then the other end will go to your T-fitting that goes to the air control, that goes to the pump, that puts a slow, very slow bubbling rate to keep the water moving and keep the brine shrimp eggs and, of course, as they hatch, tumbling at all times. You don't want them to sit stagnant, okay? So this is great, and I like this system. I've always liked this. I used to do this a long time ago when I was growing stuff for my 280-gallon. And then when I tore down my fish room to build a whole new one for the 400-gallon, I just never got around to doing this. And it's always been on my list of things I'd like to get back to doing because, as I mentioned before, people think that brine shrimp is bad. Well, it's not great. But newly hatched brine shrimp is super nutritious because their yolk sac is still attached to the animal. And you want to put the animal with its yolk sac in your reef. And your corals can eat it, your fish can eat it. If you have giant whales like I do, they are going to swim through this cloud of food, but all the little guys in your tank are finally going to get a meal really easily without having to wait their turn because the big fish can't eat the tiny dots. Just imagine you're in the ocean and you see, and you're a whale, right? And you see a nice big fish. You go for it and you consume it. But if there's like a million dots in the water, all you can do is kind of filter feed it through your mouth and through your gills because there's just nothing solid to bite into. That's the principle of doing brine shrimp nauplii in your tank because you're putting in food everywhere. It blows everywhere, which is fantastic. And everything gets a chance to get a good bite and fill their tummies up with some nice nutritious food. So if you're trying to add something extra to your tank, if you're, obviously if you're trying to do something like seahorses, you'd absolutely want this. But if you're thinking about a non-photosynthetic tank, this could be a food source. And it's so inexpensive. It's so easy to do. So what do you need to put in the 2-liter bottle? 2 cups of your tank water and a half a cup of RODI. Boom, perfect salinity. It's that easy. Now the instructions from San Francisco Bay was anywhere between 1.020 all the way to like 1.035. Like it went a big range. And they said your temperature could vary from 70 all the way up to 85. So anywhere in that range. So I normally recommend 78 degrees. If you have some kind of fluorescent lighting, if you happen to have such a fixture, or like a shop light, for example, that you had in your workshop, a small shop light put behind these hatcheries is the perfect way to keep the water temperature stable and provide light because they actually do, these animals like the light. And they're attracted to the light. So you've got your water, you've got your RO added to it to dilute it a little bit, the tank water. Remember, 2 cups tank water, half a cup of RODI. That's it. The air is already going through it, so it's already mixing. You don't have to stir it. Then you would take a teaspoon of brine shrimp eggs. And like I said, this is what I would use. If that's too much for you, use half a teaspoon. You can still use the same amount of water. That doesn't affect anything. And it's a 2-liter bottle, but we put in 2.5 cups of liquid. So you're only going to have about this much liquid, and then you have all this extra plastic above. That's a good thing, because what it does is it keeps all of the spatter inside the container and not all over your wall and the neighboring area or your workstation. Everything stays clean. It's really, really nice. Now, what I like to do is I like to put these things up higher, mounted on the wall, for example. Or back in the day, it just depended what I was doing, but I have done it where I even had it on the windowsill of my kitchen, like right above the sink, because when this was set at this height, and my tube's going to an air pump, right? When it's time to harvest these, I would disconnect the line from the air pump, and I would put it somewhere high so that it couldn't siphon out. Okay, that's the first thing you have to do. You have to stop anything from coming out of the tube, obviously, because you're going to have to wait about 5 or 10 minutes for all the brine shrimp in the hatchery to settle to the bottom. But the eggs are going to float on the top. They're brown, they're disgusting. You don't want that in your system. You want just the food, the living creatures. So what'll happen, what I've done in the past to speed things along, I would take a towel and just throw it over the 2-liter bottle to create a shade, but I wouldn't try to seal it completely from light. I just try to take away 90% of the light. So really there's only light around the bottom here because the towel's hanging over my jug. And then the brine shrimp were attracted to the light. They went down toward that light. So they're all waiting at the bottom. There's no air pushing them up. So they are compacting in the base. Then, after my 10 minutes has elapsed, I would then take my tubing that's affixed up high. And you can do whatever you can to affix this. If you happen to have like a clothespin, you could screw it to a nearby spot, and then you would just pinch the clip to stick the tube in there to hold it. And then you could just pull it right out of that really easily. It would just always be there as your latch, just to keep this from flopping down. Because if this does fall, it's going to start draining while you're waiting those 5 or 10 minutes. And you're like, oh man, they all went down the drain in my sink. That was not my plan. Of course not. So now that we've got the tube, we took it out of the clip, and now we're going to put it right over our brine shrimp net in the sink. Because like I said, I was doing my windowsill above my sink. And so I could do this. Now, if you don't have a handy dandy sink, you're going to need some kind of a container that can catch liquid under the net. But I would have my tube, I'd have my net, but when I first start and the stuff starts coming down the line, the first inch of the stuff coming down the tubing will be brown. That's some of the eggs that had also settled. So you want the eggs to come out the tube first, let that go right into the sink, and then as soon as you start seeing the little pink guys, put your net under it, catch all of them, and then stop. Don't wait till the container is completely empty. We want to catch them, and when this water starts looking clear again, take the thing and just lay it in your sink and let the rest of the stuff drain out. But here is your food. And then you can just set this on the edge of the sink and just let it sit for a few seconds for the water to drip off. And now you have a net full of wonderful, juicy food, and you can just walk to your tank and you can just go like that. Oh, well, you turn off the return pump so that the water does not go down the drain, because we don't want our nice food to end up in filter socks, fleece rollers, the sump, the skimmer. We want it in the tank where the animals can benefit from it. So now the return pump's off. We've got our net full of food, which took 20 seconds to accumulate. You set it aside for 5 or 10 seconds for the last of the liquid to drip off. You walk over to your tank and you just go, and your fish will go nuts. And if you have anthias, they're going to gobble them down. If you have big tangs, they're going to try to eat some. But your clownfish are going to get it. Your royal gromma's going to get it. Your flame angel's going to get it. Everyone's going to get food now because it's a free-for-all, because the food is going everywhere like confetti. And the beauty of it is it's not a big giant pollutant. It's nothing to worry about. You don't have to rinse them because there's nothing to rinse off. All the liquid drained off. What you have in the net are the brine shrimp, nauplii, which again are the critter with the yolk sac on the side. That's it. It's that easy. It's not expensive. Like I said, I spent $80. How did I accumulate that much money? These were probably $10 or $12 a piece for the kit. The air pump was probably $20, and then probably the brine shrimp was the most expensive part because I got a big bag of them. You can get much smaller pouches, but I chose to get a big pack that will last me a long time, just like the last time. When I had the coffee can, that went forever. And what you're not using, after you open this up, you got to put it inside something to keep it sealed away from the air. You should refrigerate the rest. So don't just put it under your cabinet open to moisture. We want to make sure that we keep it nice and airtight as much as possible. I had in the past a different type of brine shrimp eggs, you know, between the coffee can and this one. There was something like a pouch that looked like a Ziploc bag, and you could definitely put this in a Ziploc bag, squeeze the air out, and then just zip, and that's good enough. And for convenience sake, if you want, you know, if you're going to use like a half teaspoon or a teaspoon every single time, leave the teaspoon in the bag. And that way you scoop it out, you drop it back in the bag, you seal it, it's there for next time. It just makes your whole life super easy. And once you've done this 3 or 4 times in a row, you're like, man, this is real. I should have been doing this a long time ago. It's super easy. So I wanted to show you guys that. And like I said, I'll do a full video. I'll try to figure out a good spot to put these, and, you know, so that way I can really give you a nice visual and not see all my clutter. Because yes, my house has a lot of clutter. It's pretty hellacious. Now, if you wanted to mix it from scratch and not use tank water, if you want to use tap water to grow them, you probably could, but I never have. I used my recipe that I described to you, and in this video's link, you know, in the description, there are 2 links. One's the recipe, and then one's my procedure from probably 2008, 2009, 2010, somewhere in then. But they said in their instructions... no, it was in that brochure. Oh, here it is. You have different ways of doing it. You could... If you're mixing your eggs and salt, use 1 teaspoon of eggs and 2 tablespoons of aquarium rock salt or synthetic sea salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of Epsom salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon baking soda. See, that's a lot of work. My method's way easier than that, but that's another way of doing it. And so if you're like, well, I just want to know exactly how much water and exactly how much salt, yes, there is a recipe that you can follow from that company directly. But the 2 cups of tank water and then 1/2 cup of RODI, it gets you that solution that works out fine. Now, one of the things I did see in the notes from their recommendations, they said the cooler your water is, the less effective your hatch rate. And they really prefer to have the hatch rate around 82 degrees. So if you're trying to keep it a little bit warmer, you know, you can. Don't exceed 85. Once you cross that threshold, just like with everything, it just doesn't go as well. Again, all the brown casing, you know, the shells, you don't want that to go in your system. There are decapsulated brine shrimp eggs you can buy there, and it's a process where they literally take the brine shrimp eggs and they put them in a bleach solution, and that, I don't know, somehow it peels it off, and then you don't have to worry about the casings. And I believe that breeders might be doing that. Maybe that's just a cleaner system for them. But for me, having them float on the top of the water was no big deal. It was much more convenient for me to just let the animals drain down the hose and then just take my hose and put it back up in the clip, or put it down the sink and let all that stuff flush out. And then I just rinsed it in the sink with that sprayer. It was really easy to rinse clean. And then, you know, if the bottle just gets filthy to the point where you're not cleaning it properly, you can just drink a new 2-liter bottle and make a new bottle on there. That's it. See, our topic's done. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. Oh yeah, Mina, do that. He says if you want me to make a video and post it in the group to show the setup and the steps, that'd be awesome. Let me see what else is in this chat here right now. Aqua Balls was replying to my comment where I said he must have snakes in his reef tank. He says, first guy to ever know what I'm about. A 40 freshwater, 5 saltwater, and then 40 ball pythons. Wow, that is a lot of snakes to feed. Jason wants to see the books I added to my bookshelf. I can totally do that. I'll just have to stand up a little bit here because they're all right here behind me. Andrea has 41 balls. Wow, that's a lot of balls, woman. Pythons. Let's see. Mina had said earlier he raises brine shrimp 5 days a week at work. Okay. And uses them for the jellyfish, to feed jellyfish. Nice. See, you can feed anything. Okay. Pop Reef says, what happened to your anemone cube? Weren't you supposed to put it up again? Is it still a contemporary setup by your sump? It isn't a temporary setup, but Yesterday from Amazon Prime, I got the stuff I needed to start wrapping the edges of the plywood of the stand so that way it will be ready to, I can iron that on. I can then sand it nice and clean. I can stain it. I can seal it and bring it in the house. I mean, that was the one thing I was waiting on was this stripping. I talked about this a few weeks ago and I'd mentioned how I went everywhere looking for the exact wood I wanted and nobody sells it. So I had to do the banding. And so I kept planning to make a trip to Arlington to a place called Rockler that sells all kinds of tools, and they had that banding. And then during Prime Day, I thought, you know what? It's probably on Amazon. Let me just order it. And I did, and it was here the next day. I was like, all right. So that was in my hands today. And it's just a matter of me taking the time to go ahead and start applying it, melting it on with an iron like you do for ironing clothes, and then cleaning the edge with a razor blade and do soft, a gentle sanding to make the edges a little bit rounded. And then I can stain it. I didn't want to stain anything till it's all been been assembled and glued because I want a good seal. I don't want stuff peeling off later. Aquaball says, I've been thinking about buying the XR15, which is a light, or the Hydros controller. Which would you get? I do have the China lights right now. Well, if you have lights right now, get the controller. Because the controller will control the entire tank, notify you of things, let you turn things on and off with an app in your phone. It's just so much more convenient. Plus, you can, whenever you're out and about, you can see what the temperature of the tank is. You can, double check things. Or if there's a need, you can be alerted, like the floor got wet. And, since you have so many tanks, if you had the leak sensor somewhere amid all that stuff, if anything leaked, the controller would let you know, and you'd find out before you got home and opened the door and found the flood. So I think that's what you should do, is get the controller first. You can always get the light later since you already own a light. Oh, nice. Baker's Reef says the caulk reservoir arrived today. Amazing work. Thank you so much. I am glad you like it. It was really pretty. It's the second one I made like that. And I'd love to see pictures of it under your tank. Aquaball says, I found an article in Coral Magazine about the fish I just bought, the chalk bass, from a commercial breeding success. Isn't that exciting? And this week, another fish has been a commercial success. The raccoon butterfly. And apparently, Biota and OI, which is like the Institute of Ocean Institute of Hawaii, like within mere days of each other, they both did this. Like they both raised these fish. Like we're talking about a couple of days apart, two different people. It's always funny when you see a race to the finish line between breeders about a certain fish. So that news just came out in the last 7 days that raccoon butterfly fish are now going to be captive bred fish, which is huge. Okay, let's see. Panopolis says, realistically, do you feel live brine shrimp are more nutritious than frozen? Live brine nauplii are more nutritious. That's what I'm saying. Because of that yolk sac. It's super important. If you were trying to raise the nauplii and let them keep going, which I've never done, I've never tried. But actually I tried once and didn't have any luck, and I didn't care that much. Because I know adult brine shrimp are not really beneficial. They truly are the snack of the aquarium hobby. So if you were to try and raise them from nauplii and get them to become adult, so you're putting in phytoplankton and you're trying to keep them tumbling and you're trying to grow sea monkeys, essentially. Think about it. How do you grow sea monkeys when you were a kid? You got this bowl of a vase, you put in the stuff, and you probably had an airstone in there, I guess. I can't even remember. And then you waited, and there was very, very little current. And then you'd see these little things like swimming through the water because there was so little current. It's not like the water is churning or moving like it does with our aquariums. But adult brine shrimp is a method a lot of people use, including myself, when you first get a copper band butterfly. Because butterfly fish like live food that they can hunt down, chase, and devour with their little mouth. And they will find it in the rockwork. That's why they have that long snout. So if you get some kind of a butterfly and you're trying to get it to like aquarium foods, using adult brine shrimp is a method. And what you can do, you can put the brine shrimp in the tank, but put in other food at the same time. So that way it's a mixture of everything. And hopefully they'll eat this and taste that and say, oh, okay, this other stuff's not so bad. And they're not going to be super, super finicky. And so that's what I did with my copper band. I kept putting in the brine shrimp along with thawed out frozen food, dumped it all in the tank at once, and hoped it would, get away from the brine shrimp because I didn't want to keep buying brine. But the Nauplii, that stuff is super duper nutritious. And matter of fact, with that microscope behind me, I might try to put a couple of Nauplii on a slide and see what they look like at magnification, because to me it's just orange fluff in the water. But it'd be kind of cool to see what it looks like and see the yolk sac maybe. Panopolis also said it's nice to see Mark unpacking boxes instead of packing and shipping. But by the way, I should mention packing and shipping is how I keep in business. So anything you guys are buying from me at milosreef.com, I really do appreciate. It helps me pay the bills. It's really important that you guys keep helping me in this economy. So I'm not asking for free money. I'm asking you to buy things you need anyway, so I can just keep selling those to you. And especially if it's something you need made out of acrylic, obviously I'm going to make a little bit more profit margin there than when I'm reselling a product from Blue Life or from AI or whatever. So, but if there's something you need, let me know and I can try to acquire it for you. If it's something I already have in stock, obviously I can just box it up and ship it to you rapidly. I, of course, sell things like RODI systems. I've been selling those now for 20 years. And I sell all the filters, the membranes, the fittings, all that kind of stuff. I try to keep that inventory always here. Matter of fact, I've got another pallet on the way because currently I'm out of 100-gallon-a-day systems, but I still have some 150-gallon-a-day systems. So if you're looking for water, I'm your man. If you need test kits, if you need some Reef, if you need some Nero 3 pumps, I'm completely sold out of the 4s and the 7s. No, the 5s and the 7s, but I have several 3s in stock. If you need a Versa dosing pump, I have it. If you need a more continuous stepper motor dosing pump, like for a water change, I have those in stock. I don't know. There's quite. Oh, by the way, and no one, we haven't talked about this in forever, so that's why no one's buying it from me. But if you're starting a tank with dry sand, dry rock, I have a dry rock starter kit made specifically for that type of tank. It comes with 3 little bottles that get you through all the stages and put bacteria into your system. And I have that ready to sell as well. So please buy those because they eventually expire. Everything with a date on it has to expire, and it means I can't sell it after that point. So Panopolis it is the yolk that's connected to the brine shrimp. That's what makes it more nutritious. There's more protein. That's exactly it. So Cole said, I saw you on Devin's stream. Hope you had an awesome week. Quick question. Why even bother with brine shrimp? I would like to start keeping anthias. And anthias really need to be fed all the time. Now, I can't feed them all the time because my tank would just be a nightmare, right? But if I can put in some brine shrimp part of the day, the Nauplii, just dump that in, let them get a belly full. And then that evening, maybe they're picking at some of the nori, and then late that night, they're getting some frozen food. There's more of a chance of keeping them because I had 5 or 6 anthias and I have 0. And I'm going to attribute it to the fact that I've just only been feeding once a day. And I think I just didn't realize what was happening. And I just kept thinking, I'm missing one. That's weird. And then I was like, hey, now I'm missing the other one. And then after a while, I was like, hey, I have no anthias. What the heck happened? And I wasn't finding bodies. They just evaporated. So that's why. Reefkeeper says you should try the Artemia hatchery from Hobby. I've seen the different kinds, and this is the one I like. So that's why I'm using this. What else? Hillbilly Reefer says, with a 40-gallon refugium with no predators, could I release some live brine in there and let nature take its course? Well, you can put them in the refugium, but I don't think they're just going to keep living and breeding and making more of themselves. I think other things will consume them, or they'll end up moving to the next section. And it's live food, so it's for whatever's in your tank. So something will get a chance to snack on it. Jason does not believe me about my stand, but I'm telling you, it's happening. Andrew asks, does using chemicals like Brightwell's Razor help solve bubble algae outbreak? It can. I believe that is the one product that has been recommended. Flux RX at 3 times the strength will do the job as well. Emerald crabs, Nassau tang, foxface, they all eat bubble algae. I'm going to switch my screen to this one here since we're doing so much Q&A. Oh, nice. Panopolis said, I just got my newest issue of Coral, which is this one right here. And he said, your editorial is great. Very smart. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, my parents get this as well. And so they always read my editor's page. And that is my page. I get to say whatever I want. Sort of. I've been told that is your personal playground. You get to put whatever you want there. So we're working on the current issue. That will be the September-October issue. And that one will be... We're going to be talking about biotopes. So that'll be a cool issue. And we've got a really nice aquarium portrait that we're editing now. What else can I tell you? I don't want to tell you too much, but it's coming together. And soon we're going to layout. That's when it all becomes real and not just Word docs. And then after a while, it will then be proofed to death by 4 of us. And then the layout people will then proof it again for 2 or 3 more days. We want to make sure we squash every typo we possibly can. Okay, let's see. Baker's Reef says, do you sell Nutrimar? No, I don't. Reef Keeper says, when you build a sump or water holding container, do you leak test them, or have you been doing this for so long you're confident with your welding skills? Just curious. I don't leak test them anymore. I used to. I look at everything very closely. If there's any area that concerns me for some reason, I will go ahead and I will apply a little bit more weld on number 16 over that specific spot to reinforce and add a little bit more barrier between the water and the outside of the container. But I used to, back in the day, I would fill up every single sump I built, and I would see how they deflected. That was how I learned about the strength of the acrylic, was really through the experience of hands-on, just observation. And that's how I came up with the design, having the top flange on my stuff. I mean, because so many sumps you see being sold on the market have like a very thin rim of acrylic just glued on top, and they glue on a full piece and then they cut out 98% of it. So there's just kind of like this, so it doesn't look rimless. But I find that thicker flange, number one, is stronger, and secondarily keeps the salt creep inside and less spatter outside of your sump, so that your cabinet stays clean longer, your electronics stay clean longer. So it was through that school of hard knocks, so to speak, I guess you could say. And then after a while, I was like, why am I putting water in these things? It's never a problem. And, so I mean, out of 20 plus years of building things out of acrylic, I had one sump that I did not water test, and I gave it to the customer who was local. I was lucky. He was local, and he says, hey, Mark, this sump is leaking like crazy. I'm like, what? There's no way. And he's like, no, I'm sorry, And I'm like, no, don't be sorry. I built it. It's my fault. I need to come see what's going on. And so what it was, it's always the worst spot. So on the back side of that sump, between the return zone and the skimmer section, there's 3 baffles. And that 3 baffles that are so close together, it's really hard back when I was making them by hand. It's really hard to get those baffles glued exactly the same height so that the base fits on perfectly and hits them equally to get a good seam. And what had happened was those baffles were just down a hair, a little too low. So when the bottom was glued on, the glue went all the way around, and held it all together, except for that spot was a giant air pocket, basically. It wasn't even a pocket. It was an air hole. And so when the water went over the baffle, it just flowed out the back. And I was like, oh my God, I really messed this up. And so, of course, I got a little paranoid after that, and I was doing water tests again for a little bit. But now I'm at the point, I'm like, no. And when I got my 400 gallon from Marineland, I mean, they've been building tanks forever, right? my dad said, "Are you going to water test that?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "You're not going to just like haul a garden hose in the house and fill it up with water, make sure it holds water." I'm like, "No, not at all. It's an aquarium. It's designed to hold water." And I filled it up with water, RODI water, and it held water like it was supposed to. But I really thought it was funny that my dad was like, "You bought this brand new custom tank, cost a fortune." And then he says to me, "Are you going to water test it?" And I'm thinking, shouldn't they have to water test it? I mean, this is literally what they build. So kind of that's an end around answer to all your thing. I can look at the seams and know if they're going to hold water. I just know. And I'm looking for flaws. I'm looking for air bubbles. I'm looking for areas where there's a lack of glue. And as long as I have a nice, consistent, beautiful seam everywhere, which is ultimately always my goal with everything I glue, then I know if it's going to hold water or not. HTC says Aquarium Co-op has a great hatchery and they have the best eggs. You guys have heard it here. HTC says so. Aquaballs uses a Zis hatchery for baby brine shrimp, and it was $50 each. Well, they're not on the floor. They're in a tank, surrounded by loving tentacles. There are so many rows and anemones in there, and now there's a bunch of rainbow anemones in there. When I do get that tank operational, that's going to be a very interesting looking tank because of the abundance of anemones that I have of different styles now. I got the green ones, I got the roses, I've got the tan with the white tips, and I've got the rainbows. Not sure how to say this. Note Lore says, "Do I need to lose sleep maintaining alkalinity, calcium, and pH to keep an anemone happy?" Not lose sleep. You should sleep. But we want to make sure that your reef water parameters are correct for all livestock. And so that would definitely pertain to temperature, salinity, alkaline, calcium, magnesium. pH is kind of rides itself in those other numbers. If you get those other numbers right, pH is just going to be what it is. And that should allow them to be quite happy in your tank. Michael says, "Can you keep Antheus in a 40 breeder display tank?" You absolutely can. That's no problem at all. Andrew says, "Why brine versus pods?" Well, pods are going to cost you a lot more money to feed those to your tank on a regular basis. Brine shrimp is going to be way cheaper by comparison. Marco is here from Germany. Hello there. Guten Tag. I'm so glad you're here. So how are things in Germany? What's the weather? What time is it? It's 3 o'clock here. All right, what else do we got? Keep asking questions, guys, because we've already done our topic for today. And I'm always here to answer anything I can to help you, but I'm not here to waste your time. I'm still impressed that I got this little stick-on thermometer. That was cool. Unexpected perk. So as my finger is touching it, it's showing different colors. And I see that it goes, wow, this goes up to 90. Let's see, what's the highest it can go? It's showing on here 79, 80, 82, 86, 90. I can't see what's above 90 because it's a black circle. I need something hotter I can put it against. Is that going to work? It's working. This camera that you guys were on, the base gets really, really hot. Let me see if I can cheat and stick it on here. Just want to see if it says like 1,000. No, can't read it. Maybe it's a low number. Maybe it starts at like 60 and works its way all the way up to 90. I don't know. But that's kind of cool. If I had an extra one of these, I could stick it out in the studio and I know what temperature the room is finally. Oh, 93. I feel like there's another one after that. 97? Wow. Well, don't grow your brine shrimp at 97 degrees. Panopolis says, "Is Salifert still the best test kit hobbyists can get?" There's a lot of opinions these days, but invariably what I see the most popular, and I don't know if it's the best, but it's the most popular. Everyone preaches to get the Hanna tester, the Hanna checkers. They just live and swear by those things. And any other device you buy, so you'll buy a Hanna tester that costs you $50, $60, right? You had to get the reagents for it. And then they'll buy $1,000 Alcatronic or a $800 Trident or whatever, these, and they will say, well, it doesn't match my Hanna. And I'm like, which one is the official truth, okay? I mean, let's be realistic. I'm not dissing the Hannah whatsoever. I'm saying that you're saying, well, this is absolutely true. What if everyone said, well, hey, I tested my Hannah against my Saliford and it does not match. My Saliford is always right. See, you're like, no, the Hannah cost you more. It must be better. Well, then the Alcatronic cost you way more. You should believe that more than the Hannah. I mean, that's how I look at it. I don't know how you look at it. But people really swear by it. I've been using Elos for years. I really like it. I've only had one unfortunate experience with a bad set of nitrate test kits where it just said 0. Great number, but it was inaccurate. But the company replaced them, and then I had numbers again. But I find the alkalinity test super easy, though the Hannah alkalinity checker is ridiculously easy. I mean, you put the stuff in and like instant answer. It's pretty nice. But I found that most alkalinity test kits are such a breeze. You put in your 5 milliliters of water, and then every drop you put in from the bottle, whether it's Tropic Marin, or it's Elos, or it's I'm trying to think of all the different ones. I think even Saliford. You put the drops in, and it just told you the DKH. It's so easy. So I find that alkalinity is an easy test. You can do it instantly. It takes no time at all. It quickly gives you the number you need to know. Calcium is more complicated. Magnesium is the most complicated. But like I used Red Sea test kits for a little while. And I found, in my experience, and I wrote a whole article, I did a big product review about the Red Sea test kits. And the magnesium absolutely did not work for me. And I even put in the article, if someone from Red Sea wants to, take my water and this kit and show me how to use it, I would love to be proved wrong, because I've followed these directions to the T. I've watched the video tutorials. I've done everything I possibly can to understand this kit. And these numbers they're not reflecting reality. So I was like, that's the one kit I can't recommend because it just didn't work for me. But, in the meantime, maybe it's a better kit. Maybe it's been fixed. Maybe it's awesome. I do know when I looked at the Hannah calcium kit, I was rather overwhelmed by all the ingredients or the components they gave me. And I thought, I don't even want to use this one. There's too much in here. It's too complicated. And I'm much happier just going to my Elos test kit, which had 4 little bottles. And you put in this many drops, and you put in 1 scoop of this powder, and you shook it for 30 seconds, and you added a couple more drops, and boom, you knew what your calcium was. And if you want really precise calcium, you use the 4th bottle to get, much smaller numbers of like 10 ppm at a time. You like drop, now I'm at 410, drop, now I'm at 420, drop, okay, I'm still 420. And boom, I found that you could be very accurate with that one. But back in the day, Saliford was considered the one kit everyone wanted. It's what you would buy. I do have 4 or 5 Saliford test kits in stock, including potassium, which a while back was unavailable. So if you're looking for that kit, let me know, because I do have some of those in stock again. Panopolis says, can we get a surprise stream with the main tank in the background again? We could if I green screened behind me. That would be easy, because I could just film, the latest tank and then put it behind me like I've done in the past. Do I have one handy that I can just put on now? It's a little bit older. But it won't green screen me because I don't have a green screen behind me. But I could probably maybe add a camera. There's me. And then I could make myself smaller so I'm not ruining your view. I'll leave that there. Make this a circle. And shrink it down. And where's my other thing? It's hiding back here. We can do this. Maybe that. And then we just shove me up here in the corner. How's that? Better? All right, let's keep doing our questions. And make sure we don't have any audio on the video. Okay, good. So make sure. I'm looking for another question. Just give me a second here, guys. There's some chatter in the chat. Hello, Bob Purcell. Welcome to the show. Oh, no. Lord Thornton says, can we pour one out for my year-old biota mandarin that decided to stop eating is just wasting away? Its pair, or its the mate has been doing great, but this one just decided to waste away and ignored ticker pods. You can try my trick of the Mandarin diner, and maybe your Mandarin will start eating that. It's fine to feed them pods. It's fine to buy those and put them in the tank, but you have other choices and you have other ways of doing it. So if you can get your hands on an olive jar, just go to the supermarket and buy some olives. An olive jar, depending what you're finding, I went looking for this specifically. You want to find a jar that is the shape of a cigar. Okay, it's tall and very skinny, and just dump the olives out. Lay the jar on its side. Put some food in the jar and put it on the bottom of the tank in the sand, in the path where the Mandarin always goes. So if you're, I don't think you said which Mandarin it was, but for some reason my brain is thinking the male. If the male Mandarin is just not eating much, but it always tends to go through this one little path, put the olive jar right in that spot with the neck of the bottle, even with the sand, so it can just drift right in. It shouldn't have to climb up and go in. You want it to just drift in and start eating pellet food. And you could try Reef, you could try fish eggs, you could try... what is that stuff from Reef Nutrition? The Oyster Feast. You can put whatever you want inside the jar. And I used to put in Formula 1 and Formula 2 pellets, the smallest pellets I had. I'd put those in the jar, and I'd lower the jar in, let water get in, kind of swirl it around so the pellets would be wet and they'd sink to the bottom. And then as I put the bottle down, I set it down, and then the fish would swim in and eat. And the other fish couldn't get to the food. They'd be hitting the jar, and Spock would be trying to steal the food but could not. And my Mandarins go into the Mandarin diner and eat and get fatter. So if the pods thing isn't working, alternate foods might be your solution. You could even try, even though this probably won't work, but I'm just throwing it out there as another Hail Mary, try wrapping nori around a rock with rubber band and set it down on the sand. And maybe it'll snack on some of that algae. But algae is not really a food for the Mandarin. It is a pod eater, but it can eat prepared foods. And it could slurp up other things. But fish eggs, or fish roe, I think it's called, that is a really good one. Sometimes you can buy those. Rod's Food has polyp poppers, and then they have something else called... but they're eggs. And possibly Larry's Food has some kind of fish eggs as well. But any kind of tiny eggs that you can put in a jar down low with the sand bed could allow your Mandarin to possibly start eating, and eating that as an alternative and maybe not go ahead and die. When I bought my Mandarin from Live Aquaria 2 years ago, I was excited. I hadn't had one in a long time. I got a Target Mandarin. They're really pretty. I really prefer the big blue one, the green or the blue or even the red Mandarins. I really prefer them over the Target, but I still like the Target. I think they're cool. I think their pattern is interesting. So I ordered one from Live Aquaria, and unfortunately it showed up really starved, and I was concerned for it. And when I put it down in my tank, I had it in the Peacemaker. Well, I put it through Safety Stop, of course, and then I didn't put in the Peacemaker because it's a Mandarin. You just don't need to. Nothing's going to attack it. Their skin is a little toxic. Fish know not to mess with it. So I've never seen anything go toward a Mandarin on purpose in my life. But I put the Mandarin down low in the rock work, and it found a spot in the end of the tank, which faces my kitchen, and it didn't move for 3 days. I mean, it just sat there like a leech or a cucumber, something that just stays and never moves. And I was like, oh my God, this fish just came to my reef to die. But I thought, it's a 400-gallon reef. There's no wrasses. There's nothing in here to eat pods. Really, if this fish would just start looking, it could find food. And then, of course, I feed every single day. And it was day 4 when I put some more food in the tank, and the Mandarin moved over 1 inch and went like this. I was like, all right, did you find something? And I was watching it closely, and it kind of just kissed the rock once. So like, well, that's a good sign. Because what's really funny about Mandarins and pods, and please, if you've seen it, tell me you've seen it. Because I have never, ever seen what a Mandarin eats naturally. I've never been able to spot it. I will see the Mandarin studying a rock. There's this rock, there's this fish. And its eyes are like moving and like a chameleon, it's just looking all over the place. And you can just see they're really, really looking at the rock. And I'm looking at the exact same spot, and there's nothing but rock. And then the Mandarin goes, pow! And I'm like, what was it? I did not see whatever you saw. Well, anyway, it's 2 years later. My mandarin is thick as can be, a fat little fish, and it's not out and about all the time, but it's there, it's present, and if I go looking, I'll find it. It's not hiding, which is nice. But it's funny because when I approach the tank or get near it, it swims away from me. I'm like, come on, I gave you this awesome reef. Show me some love. Say look pretty for the camera. But it tends to swim away from me and go look for whatever it is it's looking for. Also, there are all kinds of breeder foods on the market. I remember one public aquarium sent me a jar of some very, very fine reddish looking food. It's like dust. And if you can get your hands on some kind of food meant for breeding and put that in the tank for the mandarin in a container that it can snack on, like I was saying, the olive jar, that really, I mean, anything you can do to get food in front of the fish would be your right approach. Michael says, is there any better type of anthias for the 40-gallon breeder? Is there one better than another? I just always like lyre tails, but there's lots of pretty ones out there. I mean, I don't even know what the number is, but my brain makes me think there's like 10 different types of anthias. Maybe there's more. The Borobonus is a deep water anthias. They're expensive, and they get big, so I wouldn't put that one in. But the lyre tail are really pretty. The Squamopinus. That's what I would suggest. I just like those. And they're usually affordable, and they're really pretty. If you've got unlimited budget and you want to buy 3 ventralis to put in your 40 breeder, you could. I don't think they have a size demand. They're not a giant anthias. They are super pretty. You look up the ventralis anthias in Google, you'll say, oh, I see why you like those. But they are not affordable. Yeah, Panopolis. Yeah, you can. There's lots of kits on the market. You're right. I'm happy with Elos. If you like Salifert, keep going with Salifert. Whatever if you're convenient, if it's something that doesn't bother you, keep going with that one. As long as it's accurate. Because what we're doing is we're following trends. We're trying. You're used to this kit. You're used to how it measures the water. You're used to how you do it. So yeah, keep going with that. There's nothing wrong with that idea. Let's see. Dicanthus Reef says, decapsulating the Artemia also encourages larger Nauplii yolk sacs into later instar stages. Allows you to gut load the brine Nauplii in the instar 2 stage with the largest yolks. I do know that some people in the past, which I've never done, they grew the brine shrimp Nauplii like I described and collected them at 48 hours. But an hour before collecting, they would pour some phytoplankton into the hatchery so that the Nauplii could eat the phyto, and then they'd capture it in the net. And now you're putting a gut-loaded Nauplii in the tank, so they're eating the brine shrimp, they're eating the yolk sac, and they're eating some phytoplankton with every bite. And that's something else you could do. Thank you for adding that information, Dicanthus Reef. Bob says, my dosing pump seems to not be pumping. Do you have any advice on troubleshooting the steps? It looks like it's trying to pull up the alpha reef, but then it drops back down. I need to know what pump you're using to answer that more specifically, but usually the tubing going over the rollers, you want to make sure that tubing is still good. Maybe that little section needs to be replaced. It could be that the connection where the tubing goes in to the assembly, the motor itself, and the other side where it's coming down, there could be an air break to where the liquid's trying to suck up, but then it's coming back down. It could be that the tubing going into the alpha reef is touching the bottom of the container, creating like a vacuum where it needs a little clearance on the bottom, or you need to cut. Let me make my circle a little bit bigger here. Sorry, guys. You may need to take your piece of tubing, like this one here we were using for our demo, and instead of it being, this one here is actually both ends are cut at an angle. That's pretty nice. But if the tubing is cut at a slope, then even if you push it all the way down to the bottom of your bottle, it will not create a vacuum seal because it's at a bevel. So you may be able to do that if that's the problem, that's creating suction. But it's probably more than likely a problem where it's going into the dosing head and it's not a good seal. And you might have to just trim this off square and press it in again to get a good seal. But it could be the tubing over the rollers needs to be replaced. Maybe it's got a crack in it and it's no longer moving liquid. Oh yeah, Spock is still going strong. She is 20 years old in my possession next month. Next month! So that's pretty awesome. Let me shrink myself again. I feel too big here. Oh, there's Spock. I'll put myself over here for a minute. Yeah, I lost the Bimax. I lost my 2 Lyreto and I lost my 2 Bimax. Those are the Bimax right there, and they're both gone. Now, the male did die where I could find it. I think it chased some food into an Acropora colony and got stuck because it was face first into the acro when I found out that it was dead, and it was so hard to pull out of there. And I just don't think flow pushed it into the coral like that. I just had this feeling the fish was darting after something and got stuck and killed itself. But then, and the female was kind of shy. And so not seeing her very often was kind of normal. She really came out to eat. And I was like, hey, I'm just never seeing her anymore. What the heck? So that was a bummer. Let's see. Pop Reef says, do you scrape the glass every single day, every other day? What do you use to scrape the acrylic? I have magnetic cleaners that are, cleaning magnets that one's inside the tank, one's outside the tank. And because my tank is so large, I have one for the front and end, and I have one for the back. And so I will go over the tank probably every other day. I don't do it daily. I don't find that there's a need to do it every single day, but every couple of days. But then once a month, I go over the entire tank with something called, I always talk about this and I always forget the name, the Easy Blade that's glued to a mag float, and you put an actual double-edged razor blade into it that's made for this thing, for the Easy Blade. And I will go over every inch of the glass. I mean, I will go along all the edges, all along the sand, all along the top, all along the other edge, and then I will go over the entire surface, every single inch of glass on all 3 sides until it's perfect. And that's just and that way I can really get rid of that stuff that's more stubborn, especially what's building up near the sand that you don't want to hit with the cleaning magnet and get grains of sand between the magnet and the glass, because you don't want to scratch the glass. When it comes to acrylic, I use a razor blade. I use a credit card scraper. Flipper sells one. The Flipper scraper is a nice rigid handle, and you can put any kind of hotel key card, credit card, gift card. You just put one in there. They even sell their version of a credit card. They have the corner is more rounded. One side is serrated like teeth. I'm not sure what you would chisel away with that, but I guess it would be good to like chip away at some coralline. But they have those blades also for their scrapers. And so that works really well on acrylic because it's softer than the acrylic, so it can't scratch the acrylic. I've also in the past taken a piece of acrylic from my garage, scrap, and I'd put it through my jointer to get it razor sharp, and I'd hold it in my hand, and I would just chip away at acrylic to clean it, because acrylic does not scratch itself, usually, unless you're nuts. But if you're just being reasonable with what you're doing, you can clean off everything without doing any damage to your tank at all. Lord Thornton says, I had them unfrozen in pellets for a year, but while one is growing great, this other one started to refuse everything in a box and also in the tank. It's not going to do well in a box because now it's stressed. It needs to be able to still wander the reef. But the olive jar trick that I started with so long ago, and there's a video about it on this channel, and then there's a article on my website about the Mandarin Diner. You can just Google that. It's super easy to do it. I actually took my olive jar and I grabbed a strip of acrylic and I took a torch and I heated up the acrylic so it was super bendy, and I wrapped around the jar while it was nice and hot so it would like hold on with a handle, and that way I could just put it down in my reef, because my reef is 30 inches tall and it was really hard to put the jar at the bottom without getting water up to my armpit. So I made this handle and I would just lower it in the tank holding the handle, set it in place, take my hand away, and all the fish would go toward it immediately, but the mandarin was mainly the only thing could walk in or swim in there. And I had some hermit crabs that would crawl in, always, because, the opportunistic. But what was really funny was Spock is super smart. And at one point, I had this on video, I think, where she would get to the end of the jar. Let me switch cameras here for a second. me find my spot. I can't find my spot. Me. So, God, I'm too close. What is the deal with this camera? Back up. All right, so there we go. So here's the jar with the food, and I'm Spock, and she's got her pectoral fins right here, and she would do this, back and forth. And she'd make current in front of that jar, and the pellets would come drifting out. And I was like, and then she'd like chomp, 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 and then she'd do this again and make them come out. And I was like, wow. I mean, seriously, that is a really smart fish. So I didn't begrudge her that. I mean, she earned it. All right, now I lost our video. Was it this one? I think it was this one. All right. What else we got? Oh, and yeah, and mandarins will definitely eat baby brine shrimp. You could put that in the olive jar, and the baby brine will try to swim out of it depending on which way the flow is going, but there's still some in there, and the mandarin could get some first before the other fish get it all. The Dry Reef says, I'm hungry for sushi or shrimp or grits. Clearly, you need a meal. That's all there's to it. And then Triggerfish says that San Francisco Bay sells fish eggs, which is advertised in Coral Magazine. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So the Kimura FX STP, that tubing that goes over the rollers probably has to be replaced. Let's see. The Dry Reef says, I moved my 130-gallon display into a stock tank, waiting for my 400-gallon Peninsula. I was dosing 100 milliliters of alkalinity daily, plus nightly kalkwasser. I haven't had to dose in 5 days. Is that normal? Well, it could be because you moved the livestock recently, and when the livestock is in this trough, it may not be in growing mode, so it's not utilizing the alkalinity you're used to seeing. You know, that will pick up again as the stuff in the trough gets used to its new environment. And then you may have to adjust your dosing to a lesser amount for now. I mean, you said you haven't had to do it in 5 days. Well, when you do it again, finally, maybe 100 milliliters is too much. Maybe you only need 50 or 60 or whatever. But you find that sweet spot because your trough isn't as big as the 130 gallon, right? So it's already lesser water volume. And then when your corals are starting to uptake, you just want to find that sweet spot and not use too much of the stuff. That's my guess. Fish Ventura mentions that the little plastic nipples where the tubing connects can clog up, so that could be another point of failure worth taking a look at. I was asked, how about your rare blenny from Biota? Well, it's doing well. It's in this little tiny box inside the 20-gallon water box. And that little box is just filled with algae now. I mean, it's like on the walls, it's on the rock, it's on everything. And the blenny's just in the middle of all that. And even the plastic bag that I laid on top so it couldn't jump out, that's got algae. So last night, I was very carefully using a toothbrush trying to clean so I can see the fish. But what I think I'm going to do is run up to Petco and buy a second one of that same little box and put that in the tank and move the blenny from the dirty tank into the clean one so I can enjoy it and then clean the other one. And that way I can swap them out until that guy gets a little bit bigger. I feel like this is going to be an ongoing thing for a while. But it's doing quite well. I haven't even heard of this Instar thing, Diacanthus. He said, I usually go for a 13-hour cycle post-hatch for gut loading. I find the majority hits Instar 2 at 9 hours for me. So 4 hours of gut loading with a good DHA source combines nicely with the Huffa yolk content. Thank you. You sound like a marine biologist. I love it. Are you going to write something for Coral Magazine? I should throw that out there right now while I got you handy. Thomas asks, what would be a good way to keep corals on live rock? I glue them in, and some don't stay glued, and then the snails and the crabs knock them off. Sometimes when you're gluing, You might have to put some glue on the rock and smush it around on the rock, and you get it all over your finger. And then you put glue on the back of the coral itself, the frag plug, and you press the gluey to the gluey, kind of get them to hold, and you hold down for like a minute or so. And that tends to stay there pretty much indefinitely. Another method is to use putty, the two-part putty where you mix it. So you got like this pink stuff and this gray stuff, they're equal amounts. And you combine the two equal amounts and you mash it up until it all becomes one single color. So once it's uniform in color, then you would take a piece of it and you jam that in the rock into the crevices. And then you would put some glue on the back of the frag plug and you press the glue against the putty. The putty holds the rock. The frag plug holds to the putty with the glue. You can kind of smush the putty around the frag plug, and that also makes it hold on really, really well. So that's a couple of different ways to make them hold on. Michael says, how many anthias could I put in that 40-gallon breeder? I'd like to do 4 or 5, and I would say 5. You always want to have an odd number, and don't worry about buying a male. Just get yourself 5 females, and then let one become a male by itself, because they always do. And, if you feel like 5 is too much for your tank based on the size of what you're buying, like if they look big and your tank doesn't seem like it could handle larger anthias, you could get 3. It's still an odd number. Still works. You got 2 girls and eventually a boy if you don't buy a boy right from the very beginning. Let's see. Yay! Bob just said he signed up for Coral Magazine. Yay! I'm so proud of you. That's awesome. And yes, your next issue, it goes to press the middle of next month, and it should arrive the end of next month. So somewhere around the end of August, early September is when your first issue will arrive, and you will be getting 6 issues. Trevor says, favorite non-Ocellaris clown species. That is super easy. The true Percula. Get that one. It's awesome. And if you can find an onyx Percula, even better. Either of those two would be a swell choice for a clownfish. Thomas, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that. He said he used a plastic tube to introduce his clown to the bubble tip anemone. Nice job. Hillbilly Reefer says, any updates on your reef tank coral trimming? Not yet. Frag tank has to be up and operational before I start cutting things out of the reef. For now, just keeping everything alive. That's my job. Keep the corals alive. All right. Well, we've been talking for 1 hour and 17 minutes. Why don't we jump to our outro? I want to remind you guys that today is Water Test Saturday. Please do test your water. I got to test 3 tanks today. And we want to check alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, nitrate, phosphate, temperature, pH. These are the generals. You might want to check potassium. You might even want to grab a sample of water and ship it to an ICP test and have that, analyzed for you so you know what's going on with your water. ICP testing is not the end-all of everything, but it sure is informative, and I do it several times a year. My last one was done in February. It's time for me to do one now. So, I would grab it on a Monday and I'd ship it overnight and get my answers on Tuesday because I'm impatient. But I would not really want to ship on Friday and have it take forever to get there over the weekend and then finally get Tuesday or Wednesday. That's just me. I like to ship during the weekdays, during business hours. So that's my recommendation to you. If your test kits are expired, but they still have liquid left, doesn't mean keep using them. Throw them away, get some new ones. I will be happy to sell you some test kits. Remember, when you buy things from me, I get to keep eating, and I get to keep the electricity on. So I do appreciate any business you throw my way. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you again next week. Bye, guys.